And here we go. Mace, we're off and running in the Broncos free agent frenzy that's going on. George Paton makes the first big move of free agency right around 8 p.m. Denver time. Just about 10 hours into free agency with signing the big fella, D.J Jones, defensive lineman from the San Francisco 49ers. 3 years, $30 million, $20 million guaranteed. Mace, when you hear it, what do you think?
Well, first, it's big, literally and figuratively, 305 pounds of big. And first things first, fills the void created when Shelby Harris was included in the deal to get to Drew Lock, or to get to Russell Wilson. Of course, Drew Lock was traded as part of that. But another big thing, of course, is just how good a run defender he was last year for the 49ers, especially how much of a push that he generates on the interior, and how that was something that, as we saw last year, was at times lacking. If you look at things like yards per carry, rushing yards per game, the Broncos weren't that bad. But if you look at their ability to generate tackles for losses on run plays, the Broncos were among the bottom 7 teams in the league at that. Somebody like D.J. Jones, a part of the 49ers unit that was in the top 5 at forcing runs that ended in loss of yardage. Jones hopefully can change that.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Mace. And while you're exactly right, the Broncos' run defense last year was okay. I think they were like the 14th best, the 18th worst, however you want to phrase it. They were pretty much an average run defense, giving up 111 yards per game. But what was one thing we said time and time again about this Vic Fangio defense? They couldn't stop the opposing team when it mattered most. So in the fourth quarter, they couldn't get off the field. That's one thing Justin Simmons pointed to at the end of this season, was said, when we need to get a stop, we just can't. D.J. Jones is a guy that can help them get that stop, one of the best run defenders out there. And when he's healthy, he's a beast. And Mace, when you look at his trajectory in terms of what type of player he can be in terms of health, well, 3 games ago was when he became a full-time starter, played 11 games, started 11 games. 2 years ago, he played in 14 games, started 14 games last year. A perfect 17 for 17. So a guy that is certainly trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and the snap count goes along with that as well. The first year as a starter, played 43% of the snaps for the 49ers back in 2019. Second year, started 14 games, 46% of the snaps. This past year, playing all 17, 51%. And one thing that we did see over time is that they would keep him out there and involve him in the pass rush more and more over those 3 years. And he got more and more active at making tackles. Zach, he had more tackles in 2021 than he did in 2019 and 2020 combined, and nearly as many for a loss. He had 10 tackles for loss in 2021, only 11 in the 2019 and 2020 seasons combined. So I think the Broncos, they're betting on that rise continuing for at least a couple more years. They're betting on the come with DJ Jones.
Yeah, exactly. And he's young. He's only 26 years old. So he still is playing for potentially another big contract after this one as well. And so what it boils down to, Mace, is you hear 3 years, $30 million, and you think, wow, that's a huge deal. Well, what it essentially boils down to, $20 million guaranteed. So this is a 2-year, $20 million contract. And the Broncos had this money just waiting for Shelby Harris for it to be his, because Shelby last year, of course, signed a 2-year or a 3-year, $27 million deal. So this deal is just $1 million more per year for DJ Jones. And he's different. He's not an exact Shelby Harris replacement, because Shelby, you loved how he was batting balls. You loved that he could get potentially 5-6 sacks. And now this, you have a guy that's coming in and stopping the run. And Draymond Jones is a guy who's supposed to be getting pressure on the passer. And that's a guy that now you should really count on to get that pass rush, because DJ is going to be the one stopping the run.
Yeah, he is, and basically anything you get from out of him in the pass rush is a little bit of a bonus. He is here to shore up the run defense, and that's something I think is going to make him a really good complement to Draymond Jones, whose strength is in the pass rush, not so much against the run. And I think one of the things that happened last year, especially when Mike Purcell wasn't out there, is you saw the guys up front kind of losing ground at the line of scrimmage when when it came time to kind of duel in the trenches. I mean, you think back to some of the games down the stretch and how the Broncos lost at the line of scrimmage, and it's no wonder that George Payton probably looked at how things progressed and said, okay, we've got to find somebody. And in D.J. Jones, you find somebody who's not just a big body, but he's really effective at actually doing some impactful things against the run and really discombobulating a run game from the inside out. I love this pickup.
Yeah, and 305 pounds. A lot of people said, well, he's a run stuffer. He's going to replace Mike Purcell. Not necessarily. He is more of a Shelby Harris replacement, just a different type. And the Broncos still hope to get an edge rusher. Chandler Jones is still on the market. Randy Gregory is still on the market. That Von Miller is still on the market. They still hope to get edge rusher to really bring that pass rush for them. This is a true one of those 3 down linemen for them that they're bringing. And Mace, we have a quick super chat coming in from Fonzie. He says, hey, guys, didn't expect you to be on so late, Zach, but I love it. Zach, I pinged you on Twitter. How much cap space do we have left?
Good question. Let's go. We need to get out the abacus here really quick because the Broncos went into this with just under $24 million left. Now it depends how much is going to be on this year because I don't believe we've seen the per year breakdown, and we know that he's $20 million guarantee, but I don't know what his 2022 number is yet, if they're going to maybe have only about a $6 or $7 million hit, or if they're going to have him have an even $10 million per year. So we don't know just yet, but what we can kind of infer from a $20 million bonus is, like many contracts, it's effectively a 2-year deal, and if he's playing well enough, he's going to get that 3rd year.
Exactly. And so I would expect the Broncos, after you factor in what they paid the couple of guys that they kept from their own team and what they're paying him this year, I would expect a cap hit less than $10 million, between 5 and 10. So the Broncos have about $10 to $15 million of cap space left that they can spend. And of course, if they want to sign Chandler Jones to $18 million a year, they can make it work. Don't worry too much about cap space. What we kind of know is the Broncos aren't going to go out and they're not going to go sign 4 Von Millers for $20 million a year. But any player that's still out there, and there's a lot of good players still out there, they can go out and afford. This contract does not stop them from doing that at all. And the Broncos add a very solid starter on the defensive line for $10 million, which is the going rate for a good defensive lineman.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you look, for example, you had Sebastian Joseph Day from the Rams, and there was some speculation about him wanting to join Evero in his defense. Of course, he ends up joining another former Rams assistant coach, but that's Brandon Staley, who's the head coach with the Los Angeles Chargers. And Joseph Day went for $8 million a year, 3 years, $24 million. And Joseph Day, not as much experience in terms of playing time, and also not as proficient in all areas on a per play basis as D.J. Jones is. So really, I think this is a pretty fair contract given what the market was shaking up to be. I'd say that D.J. Jones is $2 million a year better than Joseph Day at this point, so I think it's a fair contract.
And interesting that the Broncos signed him just a couple of hours after Joseph Day went off the market, going to Los Angeles with the Chargers. A couple quick things about him. Remember, D.J. Jones being with San Francisco, he was a crucial part of their defensive front seven the past couple of years. And man, that has been a defensive front seven that is stacked with first rounders. That has been so good, and he's been a crucial part. That shows just how good and valuable he is. And he also can get after the passer. Now, it's not something you expect like Shelby Harris numbers, 5-6 sacks a season, but he has a couple beast plays every single year where he can get after the passer.
Yeah, didn't you have a clip of one of the plays where he got to Russell Wilson?
Exactly.
A couple of years ago.
Russ is happy to have him on his side now.
Hey, maybe and maybe this is part of just making it all about the Joneses, because if you got Chandler Jones coming in on the edge, maybe you got Draymond and DJ and Chandler Jones, and of course what DJ and Chandler have in common is Russell Wilson knows them better than perhaps he wishes he knew them.
Yes, you're exactly right, Mace. And we got one super chat coming in that we'll hit right now. Norris says, what do y'all think about Lyle Collins maybe getting cut / Denver getting him if that happens?
He's intriguing, but I think with this move, with the move that you're going to see on the edge, they could get Collins in, but the cap gymnastics might be more than the Broncos want, in part because, as we were talking about earlier today, Russell Wilson's contract, his price is going to go up into the mid 40 millions by 2024. So on a per year basis. So you don't want to put everything on a credit card just yet. And I think George Payton's going to be pretty prudent here. They'll kick the tires, but I don't know that they'll get Collins unless it's on a very team friendly deal.
And Mace, we're going to kick the tires of this conversation to tomorrow's podcast. We just wanted to hop in, give a quick recap of what we thought of D.J. Jones. We're going to do this with every starter the Broncos sign, so make sure to tune in to the YouTube, to our Twitters to make sure that you're catching all the latest. But we're going to break down the D.J. Jones signing much more on tomorrow's podcast. Tune in noon Denver time. Mace, thanks so much for hopping on with me. We'll talk to you all tomorrow on the DNVR Broncos podcast.